Looking back at all the time I have spent with gaming, nothing gets me more nostalgic than the days of the GameCube, Xbox, and PS2. The 6th generation of consoles ran from 1999 up until the release of the Xbox 360 in 2005, and that covered the wonderful years I was in high school. Having friends over after class, or for entire weekends sometimes, meant that there were tons of great memories made. Seeing as I have had a number of you ask me for my top games for a variety of different systems, it felt only right to start with this milestone generation. To kick it all off will be the GameCube, as it was the first Gen 6 system I possessed. For these lists, I'm going to be focusing on games that were exclusive to this particular console. Exclusive for the purposes of this video means the game wasn't available on other Gen 6 systems during the span of that generation, so you will see a few games included that made it onto future systems. I will also not be including compilation titles of older games, but full remakes are fair game. To start us off is Mario Kart Double Dash. I must admit, this game has only made it onto my personal top 10 thanks to Sir Lols, who has taken charge of the GameCube LAN community. We have had a number of 4 to 8 player races over the last few years, and they have been nuts! Back when Double Dash was new, I wasn't as big of a fan. I always found the game less enjoyable than Mario Kart 64. Still do. But the multiplayer modes were enjoyable with friends. We would spend a good chunk of time playing the game in both shared and multiple kart multiplayer, and eventually got to the last race to unlock the golden train cart. Sadly, we never did unlock it though, as doing every track back-to-back in mirror mode never sounded appealing to any of us when other games could be played. Still, Double Dash holds up well today, and that co-op experience is unmatched by any of the series' later titles. Star Wars Rogue Squadron 3 Rebel Strike is a game that both extremely disappoints me and I love to play, all wrapped into one. As a sequel to one of my favorite franchises within the Star Wars universe, I would eagerly await any news or previews for the game. When it was announced that you would get to be leaving the cockpit for some on-foot missions, I was intrigued as it breaks away from the series' traditional forms of play. I'm not gonna lie, I was hoping for Halo levels of awesome combat from my favorite devs at Factor 5. Unfortunately, that wasn't what we got, and the on-foot sections of Rebel Strike almost bring the game down to don't play this territory. Thankfully, the traditional ship levels are still amazing, with a number of interesting set pieces tossed in, including the then-new Star Wars Episode II location, Geonosis. The crowning achievement for Rebel Strike, and the reason it makes my list, is the inclusion of the entire campaign of Rogue Squadron 2 playable completely in co-op. It has some bugs, but this co-op mode makes one of my all-time favorites even better. Before the release of Metroid Fusion, I was never much of a Metroid fan. I played the original Metroid at a friend's house on an NES and its sequel on Game Boy, but never made it anywhere or got into it. Then with the release of the GBA and the announcement of Metroid Fusion, I became obsessed with the game. I needed to have Metroid Fusion in my life, and wasn't satisfied with anything until I finally got it. Part of this obsession with Fusion translated over to Metroid Prime on GameCube. Both games came out around the same time and featured interconnectivity to unlock bonuses. Playing Metroid Prime was a ton of fun, as the genre was still fresh for me, and seeing it in both 2D and 3D at the same time as I progressed through both games was really cool. Metroid Prime would end up taking me around 2 years to finally beat after its original launch, since I got lost and stuck a number of times. Finally defeating it was a proud day for me. This original GameCube release is still beautiful to behold, and I have to say, I greatly enjoyed over the Wii port. For those of you who follow my channel and streams regularly, you know I hate horror games. I don't like being scared, and I don't like the sense of dread they instill me with. That being said, I have developed a case of Stockholm Syndrome for Resident Evil, and look forward in dread to its next iteration. Having missed the original games in the series, Remake was my first experience with the franchise and pretty much survival horror in general. My genius mind had me playing it for the first time in the middle of the night while I was alone, and needless to say, I didn't make it far before I turned it off in terror. I told you all I can't stand horror stuff, right? Over the next few months, I would eventually make my way through the game with and without friends. I had to start playing it by myself, as my friends would enjoy spooking me a little too much as I played. Still, it was an interesting journey, and one I go back to on occasion with the latest release on Xbox One. Even after 18 years, the game still manages to freak me out more often than I would like to admit. Custom Robo is a game that took me by surprise when it launched on the GameCube. Having only heard about the series thanks to a trophy entry in Super Smash Bros. Melee, I was curious to check it out when it finally arrived. The arena combat and robot customization was fantastic, and it easily became one of my favorite games to play for a good number of months. The story was also something I would work through with friends when we needed a break from multiplayer games. Speaking of multiplayer, Custom Robo also featured a 4-player multiplayer mode that was pure chaos to play with all of our unlocked parts. One of my best friend's little brothers would always want to play it with us. Being the scheming types, we would finally let him after we enabled some action replay codes to really screw with him. Good times. It is criminal that the last entry we would see in this series came from the 2006 release of custom Robo Arena on the Nintendo DS. I love Mega Man Network Transmission. It combines elements from the classic side-scrolling outings with other elements from the Battle Network games to form this awesome adventure through the net. Set between the events of the first two Battle Network games, you get to run into a number of familiar characters and the action is top-notch. Using Battle Network's weapon card system, you could customize your loadouts to help make it through each stage. Yep, there was a fair bit of strategizing required to make it through this one, and that's what I absolutely loved about it. There is also a fun cameo from Mega Man X's Zero in a new Battle Network aesthetic, and it looked so cool. Unlike the Battle Network titles, you wouldn't get to explore the real world as land, so for those of you out there who like that aspect of those games, this might be a bit of a letdown. I honestly appreciated the ability to dive right into levels, so this didn't bother me too much. If you are a Mega Man fan, you need to check this out if you haven't already. I am not the biggest RPG player. When I do get in the mood to play one, it usually needs to be action-based, as very few turn-based games can keep my attention. Thankfully, Tales of Symphonia is one such game, and I have sunk a good chunk of time into it across 3 full playthroughs back when it was new. The story of Lloyd and his friend's journey to help Colette regenerate the world might not have been wholly original, but I loved it all the same. The battle system is also top-notch, and the way you can learn new abilities was fun. My wife is also an avid fan of Tales of Symphonia, so when we started dating, it was something we enjoyed playing together quite a bit. Yep, this game supports up to 4 players in the combat sections of the game, which can be amazingly strategic if everyone plays their roles correctly. Yes, this game's inclusion on my top 10 exclusive GameCube games list is a bit of a cheat, as the game was released on PS2 during the generation's lifetime. But that version was only available in Japan, so for an overwhelming majority of us, it was GameCube or bust. So I call it fair. The GameCube version is also just the best version of the game released to date, with each subsequent port using the inferior PS2 version with its halved performance compared to the GameCube original. Wind Waker is an interesting title on this list for me. On the one hand, it's from the mega popular Zelda franchise, but on the other, it is also super divisive. I remember vividly all of the build-up to the game's release, with the Ocarina of Time tech demo showing what the GameCube could do, up to its official reveal as a cel-shaded game. So many, and I mean so many people at school were bummed out about this art style, and I definitely had reservations at first. After playing the game though, I absolutely loved it, and thanks to its art style, the original GameCube release still holds up very well even today. I can't count the hours I put into Wind Waker to get absolutely everything it had to offer. One of my fondest memories still comes from a time I was doing homeschool lessons while my friend was over playing the game in another room. I was trying to learn about history, and all you hear is kaboom! Coming from the next room. The teacher was so distracted. Good times. I was happy this game got a Wii U release, even if it turned it into a bloomy mess. When I finally got a PS2 and by extension PS1, one of the first games I had to play on the system was Metal Gear Solid. My friends would tell me about how awesome the game was, and I couldn't wait to try it myself. Sure enough, I loved it and have been a longtime fan of the series since. When it was announced that Silicon Knights was remaking the game in Metal Gear Solid 2's engine, I was very excited. Silicon Knights were fresh off their hit title Eternal Darkness, and what they could do with the GameCube hardware was very exciting. For the most part, Twin Snakes was a fantastic update to the original, but having access to Metal Gear Solid 2's moveset show how the game wasn't designed for that type of play. Twin Snakes was a much easier game overall compared to nearly every other entry in the franchise. Then there were the over-the-top action scenes, which were completely out of place for the tone of the game. I know some people also took issue with the recast of Mei Ling and Gray Fox, but I'm pretty indifferent to that myself. I am bummed that Kojima decided not to let this version be remastered when the HD collection came out on Xbox 360 and PS3, as seeing it in widescreen and at a higher resolution would have been amazing. And here it is, my favorite GameCube exclusive title is none other than Star Wars Rogue Leader Rogue Squadron 2. I honestly don't know what to say about Rogue Squadron 2 that I haven't covered in my dedicated video about my love for the game. But to summarize for those of you who may be new here, I waited outside of our local Walmart until it opened to get my GameCube and Rogue Squadron 2 as my one and only launch title. I played the game to death back in the day, unlocking every possible medal along the way. As the years have gone on, the game has been able to provide further significance to me as it became the game that started my YouTube channel back in 2014. Ever since its release, I still don't think another Star Wars flight game has come close to besting it. Even the more recent Star Wars Squadrons just doesn't compare to the action and speed of Rogue Squadron 2. If you own a GameCube and have never played this game, you should give it a shot. And there you have it, my top 10 GameCube exclusive games. What did you think? Any games you weren't expecting to see? And were there games that you are shocked didn't make my cut? Let me know in the comments below, along with a list of your top GameCube games. But that does it for today's video on my top 10 GameCube exclusive games. I look forward to seeing you all back next time for my top 10 original Xbox exclusive games list. See you then.